How? Kill? Two-thirds? How do I propose to kill the other two-thirds? Good question. Well, I plan to use that ionizer I stole the chip for starters. The rest will be executed. When? Well, these things take time, but it'll probably start about 12 hours in Washington, D.C. of all places.
You know what? I feel like, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I feel like Klatch should talk faster because he does it so much.
Okay. Touché. I know it'd be simpler to start here in Japan, but what if the Americans caught on? They're such a damn nuisance with their missiles and nukes. They might just, as you said before, blast me to hell once they've caught wind of what I was trying over here. No. I think it's better to start in D.C. See, America is the policeman to the world, and it'd cripple the world's police force. And to cripple the world's police force would make it easier to carry out my plans. Besides, by starting in Washington, I'm wiping out the cradle of the government. And when there's no government, the country will fall into anarchy, which will make it that much easier to splinter the population into a million pieces. They'll do half our work for us by killing each other, once their leadership's out of the way. And given our proficiency with machines and computers and whatnot, it'll be so simple to take control of the country's nuclear capabilities. I mean, they were manufactured for use, right? We'll use them to downsize the population of the world. And given that we don't truly function as human beings anymore, we'll outlive whatever radioactive fallout that may exist from nuking the rest of the world. I mean, sure, this semi-organic skin they covered you and I will most likely rot. But, as you've probably already noticed,
Klatch peels another section off his facial skin off, revealing further metal.
Sorry, dog. I'm not that into
Klatch is just feeding his skin to a dog. It's clear. It's cool.
No, my dog.
No, I heard your dog, and I'm working him into the script.
There you go. I'm not that into the aesthetic anyway. Beauty's only skin deep, right?
Smiles as he tosses the skin away to Patrick's dog.
Yeah. No, the only danger of the nuclear weapons is the possible havoc that the bomb's resulting electrical magnetic pulse could wreak on our circuitry. But I think our microprocessors can withstand low-level hits of EMP.
Rises to his feet.
But I can explain this all on the way. The fireworks in Washington begin in approximately 12 hours, and that's the best time to ionize the atmosphere, when everyone's in one place. What can I say? I believe in the quick kill.
Shrugs.
So, what do you say, Steve? Are you with me on this? I've appealed to your intellect. You see that I can't be defeated. Look at that army, for God's sake. This very day, the new world begins, and I'd have you by my side for its birth. Are you with me?
Steve struggles to his knees, still convulsing. He grabs onto the cage and pulls himself up further, weakly staring up at Klatch.
Go to hell.
Steve drops again. Klatch shakes his head at him, sadly.
It was worth a shot, wasn't it?
Klatch moves toward the wall and hits a button. A control panel opens. While entering a code,
my parting gift to the Atoya Corporation and to this great land of the rising sun is rather dramatic, but somewhat ethical.
Essential.
I know, I can read, just not very well, but somewhat essential. This fortress will go nuclear in 15 minutes, by which time my army and I, along with the ionization device, will be long on its way towards the U.S. It won't be all that impressive an explosion, only 1 megaton, but it'll be enough to destroy this base with you in it.
Klatch pushes a button. the LED clock built into the panel begins its 15-minute countdown.
Ooh, it's an LED clock. That means it's legit. A tad much with the clock, I know. But, as you've pointed out, I've watched too many movies. Au revoir, Captain. Au revoir, Colonel... The fuck is wrong with my mouth? Au revoir, Colonel Austin. I shall think of you from time to time. Not often, but still. And I should run into either Sage or Oscar, I'll be sure to tell them that you died with your boots on.
Klatch mock salutes Steve and marches away. Then he stops short. He heads back toward the switch on the wall and throws it. The microwaves erupt anew in Steve's cage. He begins convulsing violently again, rolling about. Klatch frowns.
That's for not declining politely.
Klatch marches away, leaving Steve writhing in agony amidst the electrical waves, which is not what microwaves are. They're radiation waves,
yeah.
But whatever.
It's Kevin. He's scientifically stupid.
Thank Christ. A scene change. Interior, launch pad, night. Soldiers continue to board the carriers under Gilgamesh's watchful eye. Just the one. Klatch joins his majordomo.
Is this the last of them?
Gilgamesh nods.
And the device has been loaded as well?
Gilgamesh gestures toward the largest of the jets, a transport a few planes away. Klatch nods.
Then, let's clear this dump. You and I will ride with the device. Instruct the others to follow.
He rushes toward the Harrier.
Shotgun.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
The roof opens, revealing the night sky. The jets prepare for liftoff. Interior, containment hangar. Steve writhes on the floor, agony splashed across his face. He manages to look toward the launch pad. Interior, launch pad, night. The squad of Harriers lifts into the air, being led by Klatch's and Gilgamesh's transport. Interior, containment hangar. Steve cranes his neck in the other direction, toward the countdown clock. It reads 10 minutes and counting. Steve will more than likely be permanently incapacitated in half that time. Steve continues to be beaten by the microwaves. That's so dumb. He looks around his cage and sees the micro disc.
No.
The one Klatch had tossed to him.
What the hell?
Steve pulls himself toward it, struggling. Interior, launch pad, night. The Klatch craft clears the overhang doors and climbs into the night air. The second jet begins to follow. Interior, containment hangar. Steve reaches the disc and grabs it. Pulling himself toward the edge of the cage, he grabs onto the bars and pulls himself to his feet, all while still being pelted by the devastating microwaves. He sets his sights on Steve's POV, the second jet. Using his thermal sighting enhancements, the image goes digital, giving a gridded layout of the cockpit. Through the grid, we can make out body temp visuals of the pilot and co-pilot. Steve winds up with his last bit of strength and hurls the disc with bionic might. The disc whips through the air at incredible speed and pierces the hull. Interior, second jet cockpit, night. The disc embeds itself into the head of the pilot, who slumps forward on the column. Exterior, launch pad, night. The second jet veers and swings around, smashing into the third carrier. I looked away and I lost my spot immediately.
See? I'm not the only one.
Into the third carrier, which then flips and spins into the fourth and fifth. Those carriers smash into the walls of the cave and are engulfed in a flaming explosion. Interior, transport cockpit, night. Gilgamesh calls Klatch's attention to the mountains as it emits fire and smoke. Klatch's POV. The mountain shakes relentlessly under the force of the internal explosions and begins to crumble. Then, we zoom in, via Klatch's own bionic sight. 6 times, to catch the detail of the soldier/pilot of the fifth craft screaming as his cockpit is engulfed in flame. Klatch slams his fist on the side of the cockpit.
Damn him!
Gilgamesh offers a questioning look at his master. Klatch fumes.
Get us out of here now!
Gilgamesh lays on the thrusters. Klatch's transport takes off into the night. Interior, launch pad, night. The fifth carrier, the one with the screaming, flaming pilot, bounces off the inside wall, careening toward the adjacent containment hangar. Interior, containment hangar. Yeah, you guessed it. From his cage, Steve sees the jet heading toward him. With all the strength he can muster, he climbs to his feet, the microwave still lashing him. He watches the jet sliding toward him and times his jump. A microsecond before the jet smashes into the cage, Steve leaps into the air. The cage goes skyborne, and Steve runs across its interior like a hamster in a wheel and flips onto the hull of the moving jet. He bionically leaps from the jet to a crumbling wall on the other side of the hangar, just as the jet impacts into the mountain and explodes.
Wow.
Steve frantically punches the crumbling rock that holds him above the fire below. He climbs in this manner toward the open ceiling and pulls himself out. Exterior, the mountain, night. Balancing along the lip of the mountain, Steve looks back briefly. Steve's POV. Bionically enhancing his line of sight, Steve zeroes in on the countdown clock, which hits the 2-second mark, then the 1. Steve jumps from the mountaintop into the air. The mountain goes nuclear, mushroom cloud style. Interior, launch pad. Soldiers climbing from the wreckage are seared by atomic fire, liquefying them. He didn't research that.
Now, wouldn't it, an atomic blast would basically, not liquefy, but just turn you into dust, right?
Yeah, you'd be essentially atomized.
Yeah.
Not liquefied. Also, atomic fire isn't a thing.
No.
The atomic is just the discharge of an explosion. It's just fire. There's some radiation, but it's not atomic fire. This dude read too many comics.
Of course.
And not enough, real science books is what I'm saying. Because no problem reading lots of comics. That's great. But temper it a little bit with some reality, Kev. Interior, containment chamber, hangar, containment hangar. The dazed soldiers from the jet that freed Steve are seared by the blast. So the other guys are liquefied. These ones are just seared. Still raw on the inside, I guess. Exterior, the mountain, night. As Steve plummets to Earth, the mountain crumbles within itself. Exterior, forest, night. Steve lands on one tree, then another, and hits the ground with a thud. He shakes off his tumble and climbs to his feet. Looking back at the mountain momentarily, he then races through the woods. Steve reaches his jet and climbs inside. Interior, cockpit, night. The pilot is dead, killed by debris that fell from the exploding mountain. He slumps over the partially damaged control board, which sparks. Steve winces as he pulls the man's body from the cockpit and places him on the ground. Steve then pulls the cracked cockpit window closed and powers up the jet, while strapping on his helmet. He snaps on the comlink.
Echo 1 to Echo Base. Do you copy? Echo 1 to Echo Base. Do you copy?
The dash sparks and the cockpit goes black. Steve slams his fist into it a couple of times and it comes back on. He tries the radio again, but now it's completely dead. Steve blesses himself and guns his thrusters. Instead of thrusting his gun.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know that I would take a cross-country flight in a jet that had a sparking control board.
Well, he's a robot man?
Yeah, all right, well.
Exterior forest night. Steve's Harrier rises into the